Does the preseason matter? And who talks tougher, PJ or Byron? We'll be debating these topics and others on this edition of One-on-One with ThunderMadness.com. I'm Mike Sherman. With me on the Dodge Sports Desk, our Thunder beat writer Darnell Mayberry and our NBA writer Mike Baldwin. Guys, the Thunder has had a week of training camp and is already plunging into the preseason. The practice games start Wednesday in Billings, Montana against the T-Wolves. Darnell, you'll be there. Let's start true or false. The preseason matters. Darnell?
You got to go with true here, and I'm saying more than just looking at guys. I think wins and losses matter. I mean, for this team, wins and losses matter, I think. I think you have to destroy that 62-loss feel of a year ago and sort of build on that in the preseason. The time starts now, and I think you have to go into these 7 preseason games with a winning attitude, come out of them with a winning attitude to build on that going into the regular season.
Well, talking about that, the Summer League, they seem to treat the Summer League almost the same way, too. The Oklahoma City came out of the Summer League sort of saying, we're going to do really well down there. But, Mike, does it matter?
False. Matters about this much. A little bit of rotations, a little bit of chemistry, those issues for so many new players, but we see it in Major League Baseball, we see it in the NFL, you see it in the NBA. Earl Watson, I'll acquiesce to him. The other day he said, one year we almost went undefeated in preseason, lost like our first 10 regular season games. Doesn't matter.
Okay, next question. Speaking of Earl Watson, week 2 of a season-long debate on the Thunder point guard. Who's got the leg up right now, Russell Westbrook or Earl Watson? Start with you, Mike.
It's Watson. I mean, Westbrook, we just got to see how he develops. My prediction is around Christmas he may get the starting job, but Earl Watson's a veteran who played his best basketball of his career last season, so he's going to be the starting point guard opening night. I don't think there's any doubt. Do you?
No, you have to go with Earl Watson for all the reasons he said. 7-year veteran, coming off the best year of his career. He's been in the system. I think this is the most important thing. He's been in the system for a year, and he knows what to expect. So I think PJ has to go with him.
Hey, these guys look like they know what they're doing. You got the wisdom of Earl Watson, who spent time with John Wooden and in his reading library, and the guy just comes across like he's really a wise head and a steady hand. But you got the upside of Russell Westbrook. I'm going with Westbrook just for the long term.
Opening day.
They drafted this guy, and in the NBA, rookies start. They just do, especially rookies taken in the top 5. I'm going with Westbrook to start opening day. Next question, bigger improvement, Kevin Durant's inside game or Jeff Green's outside game? Darnell, you go first.
I think I'm going to have to go with Kevin Durant's inside game. You know, he's going to get more opportunities than Jeff Green. I mean, they're going to go into Kevin Durant in the post more often than they're probably going to go to Jeff Green on the perimeter. So you have to go with Kevin Durant.
How far out do we count Jeff Green's outside game?
15 and out, I would say.
Which one are you picking?
Well, I go with Jeff Green because PJ said the biggest disappointment, you guys have already discussed in the other video on the Thunder video, that the biggest disappointment are all these injuries, is one, they're going to have to put Green down low for some minutes just to get by these preseason games. PJ really wanted to see him out at the 3 because he said he's improved a lot at the 3. Jeff said he worked on every aspect of his game this summer, and I think that's one thing he really worked hard on is I think his outside game is going to improve a lot. He even handled the ball some at Georgetown, he tells us. So I think that's a part of his game he wants to take to another level, and I think he will this year.
You know, I think Jeff Green reminds me a little bit of David West. He's not quite the same player. He's more of an out-on-the-court kind of player. But if he can hit the shots that David West made a living hitting, that raised his scoring average up to 16 points that first season, that's the outside weapon they want. I'm going to go with Jeff Green. I just think both of them are going to be more outside.
Is he the final vote?
No, not really, but I like to think that sometimes. Okay, hey, listen, next question. Bigger improvement, Nick Collison scoring or the Thunder's defense? Mike Baldwin.
It's got to be defense just because it's sort of like when you're so low, you got to go up. They were one of the worst defensive teams in the league. Presti has emphasized it the entire offseason. They brought in better defensive players. Guys like Green, Durant have gotten better in the offseason, play better defense. You're bringing in guys like Mason, Smith can play a little bit of defense. I think it's going to be defense just because they started so low. It's got to get better or this is going to be a long season.
No way it's going to be defense. I mean, this was the 4th worst defensive team in the league last year. They couldn't stop Bishop McGinnis Fighting Irish last season.
Ouch.
Daniel Orton would have scored 30 on him.
Ouch.
106.3 points they gave up last season. The field goal percentage wasn't much better. I think they just have so far to go. I talked to actually the GM Sam Presti the other day, and he said it's a process building this defense. I mean, it's going to take some time. And granted, they do have more defensive weapons. Mike Baldwin just mentioned them. Desmond Mason, Russell Westbrook, Joe Smith, those guys. But I think Nick Collison's scoring. I mean, PJ said it the other day. He wants him to be more aggressive in the post. And the last time a coach was here, Byron Scott, when he got a player who he wanted to be more aggressive, you saw he almost became an all-star in Tyson Chandler. So I think Nick Collison could probably get up to that 12, 13 point per game range. He was at 9 last year, a little over 9. It was a career year for him. I think you got to go with Nick Collison.
I like the Nick Collison answer because I actually think both of them are going to be improved. I think it's impossible for this team not to be improved defensively. They just brought more of a defensive mind frame in with the acquisitions they got, especially the draft. But I was reading between the lines of what you wrote about Nick Collison. I just think the guy's got more scoring to give, and they'll need it.
And I'll say one more thing. That post defense, that interior defense is probably their worst, their biggest weakness. I mean, they don't have very many guys that are going to stop people, and I think that's going to be a major factor as this season goes on.
Who's going to stop Tim Duncan? Big question. Okay, last question. Bigger no-nonsense coach talk. Now, we've heard some tough talk this week from PJ Carlesimo, but Darnell, you covered Byron Scott for 2 years. So who's the tougher, Byron or PJ?
Without a doubt, you got to go with Byron Scott. The amount of times that he said soft in a week, I mean, you lost count of them. He called his team soft more than any, and it was kind of strange because you don't really see that out of coaches. I mean, I remember we were out in Utah. He took it a step further, and he said they quit. For him to say that they quit, he called them soft. It was more than one guy. I mean, he called out J.R. Smith. He called out Kirk Snyder, Arvydas Matsiaskis.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he called out pretty much the whole roster. When you weren't performing, he let you know about it. PJ, he's still got to show me something before I put him on that Byron Scott level.
We're just new in the neighborhood with PJ, but Mike, which one do you pick?
Well, I wasn't a beat writer in those days. I was sitting in the stands. I was reading what Darnell wrote in the newspaper. So, I mean, I'm more familiar with what PJ's done here the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, if he says it's Byron, it's Byron. But he's also talking regular season games. Let's give PJ a chance to get in the middle of the battles here and get after it. I have seen him call Robert Swift out. I have seen him say some guys are busting their tails all summer and some guys are not. And, I mean, that's right to the media, right to microphones. It's not like he's holding any punches back either. So you give Darnell the vote here. He's the one that's dealt with both of them. But I've seen enough from PJ. Once we get in the season, I got the feeling he can crack that whip pretty good himself.
What's impressive about both of these guys, and I think in some ways refreshing to Oklahomans, is, our experience in basketball is tough talk from Eddie Sutton. Eddie really didn't mince any words or pull any punches. He once made a former Army sergeant sit in a corner during practice at an OSU basketball game practice. So people kind of like that tough talk about Byron Scott. And here comes PJ. As you said, we've not even played a preseason game yet, and he's already coming out. It's an interesting thing to watch and an interesting discussion to continue, and you can continue it at our Oklahoma City's newest NBA fan website, www.thundermadness.com, and you can also follow the best coverage anywhere on this team in the NBA through our coverage team at the Oklahoman on newsok.com, newsok.tv, and every day in the New Look Oklahoma.